Welcome to the second part of my social media Q&A, and in this part I'll talk about social media as a learning tool and for artist communities, and I'll also tackle some personal questions. So let's dive into the questions. So the first question is from Kim. I only maintain my Facebook account so I can be part of specific artist groups, local urban sketches, sketchbook revival, etc. How do you participate in events like this without social media? So first off, if you only use Facebook for certain things and ignore it the rest of the time, I don't see why you shouldn't keep the account for that if you're not against the concept of this platform. So the trick is to be able to ignore the rest, and if it works for you, then why not keep it for these activities? That's obviously something that you have to decide for yourself. I tried this tactic for over a year, and I kept being pulled into wasting time on these platforms, and that's why I needed to pull the plug entirely. And another thought about these Facebook groups, what I've observed, and I've also heard from others, that it can be quite overwhelming to be in larger groups. There's so much being posted and shared all the time, and Facebook doesn't really present the posts in any linear or logical order, so I didn't really enjoy that. I never felt it was a particularly good learning environment. It's very fractured, and the Facebook side has lots of distractions. So I don't know why people are still, offering these Facebook groups for learning, because frankly, it's not really a good way to go through a group experience within the Facebook platform. The next question is from Lynn. I have not taken the social media plunge, and I'm feeling a bit pressured to do so as I begin offering creativity classes and workshops. I don't want to, but also I'm exploring how to do this and develop what I have to offer. This is a really interesting question for people who want to offer their own classes. So what I find is I don't think you need social media for your classes. In the years that I've done this, I've gotten feedback from many people in classes and also from online events who didn't like posting their results on social media at all. Most people who are still learning, who are maybe beginners, feel really pressured and are very self-conscious, and so they also tend to compare yourself, and so this is not really the best learning atmosphere. Of course, there's always a number of people who's willing to post and share their work no matter which platform you are on. I think that email can be a terrific tool for personal, individual feedback in online classes. I've used this in the past for some of my classes, and students always loved it and got a ton out of it. And even the people who were a little bit too shy to post anything publicly, even in a closed group. And then there are a lot of free options for sharing pictures or for chatting or for building community. You can offer your courses on platforms where all of this is combined in one single thing, usually for a fee. Or you could build a custom solution yourself or use different free services. And I think these solutions are always worth a look, especially if you value your privacy and the privacy of your students. Okay, the next section is about personal changes that happened to me after I quit social media. The first question is from Sue. So, will you continue without, or will you start up the social media accounts again? I'd like to know what you noticed the most. Did you get more done? Did you stay more focused on your goals? Did you feel healthier mind-wise? Less random stuff entering your mind and thoughts? Did you have a more positive outlook on life? So first off, I'll never return to social media. I honestly believe there are better ways to spend my time, and I don't want to look back on my life and admit that I didn't do a lot more than scrolling through a feed while battling to stay creative, battling to have output and be productive, which is what most days, from what I remember, really felt like and were like. And I also took this step because I don't want to give Zuckerberg's awful company in particular any more data. The business models of these social networks are really unethical from my perspective, not to mention they are a huge privacy disaster. So after all that I saw and read, I can't go back, even if I was okay with the aspect of wasted time. So what I noticed the most was probably my anxiety levels. They went down considerably when I stopped consuming these online feeds. And I don't mean only social media, but also news, which I consumed a lot of. I still read news today, but only 1 or 2 times a day and on a static, neutral news site or on the radio. So that has changed too. And before I did that, I used to wake up with anxiety in the morning. I felt pressured and incompetent throughout my day, not every second of it, but often this feeling returned. And they were particularly strong when I checked my feeds. I was really afraid of being such a bad artist that people would eventually find out, even though I presented perfect things or beautiful things on my feed. And of course, this can never work, you know? Because you're still a normal person, you still have bad days, and even if you're a working artist, you still learn new stuff all the time, you make mistakes. At least that's how I learned it works. And even the pros fail sometimes or have bad days. It's good to know that and feel that, but this is not the end of the world. Just another day, you get to try again. But on social media, you usually don't share failed attempts, and that really can produce a lot of pressure. And I have to say, part of that anxiety came from what was happening in the world, and this has come back a little bit since the corona crisis, but I know I can handle it now much better. So yes, absolutely, my outlook on life and on my art has gotten a lot better. And as for random thoughts and focus, I have to say this was still a problem for a while, because you can't only change one thing. You have to look at your whole relationship to media and how you consume it. So because I kept reading news, it fractured my attention in a similar way like social media before, and it also caused this low-level anxiety that was there the whole time. So I learned I have to be careful not to spend too much time on these things. Okay, on to the next question from Vicky. Would be fun to hear what in your taking away was added. What came in between the spaces previously filled by the distractions, perceived, accepted social media engagements, etc.? I'm making assumptions here that will probably suggest a more spiritual, holographic experience of discovery of you and your interconnectedness with all that calls for you to notice, external and internal. And she went on and said, oh, this is probably a bit too esoteric, but you said, ask me anything. That's right, Vicky, and that's a perfectly all right question. So, yes, indeed, I suddenly had more free time and time to think about what I really wanted for my life. And this was a really important phase for me to go through. And I realized that what I wanted to do was not to stare at a small screen and refresh a feed the whole time. So what did I do? I started reading a lot, around maybe 1 book a week. I still try to do this. I spend a lot of time in my garden and baking bread, so really physical activities. I recently started working out again. We go hiking a lot, so in the way that's still possible right now. But I also spent a lot of time just painting and sketching for myself, also for getting better at my skills. And in the beginning, I really had to actively plan in these things. So I tended to revert to this scrolling mode where I just wanted to consume. I had phases where I turned the internet off and forced myself to read. And it was really hard in the beginning. I have to admit this. This doesn't sound like fun, but I had to relearn these behaviors. I still use internet blockers from time to time because they've proven to be a valuable tool. So if I need to get important work done and don't want to be disturbed, or if I'm noticing that I'm slipping back into this passive consumption mode. So on to the next part of your questions, this kind of more spiritual question. I don't know if I had a particular kind of epiphany or new kind of connectedness, so I'm already pretty connected to nature. I have to say I can better appreciate boredom and idle time now. So I don't feel like I have to fill every free second with scrolling through profiles or through the internet, and I believe this boredom is important time for developing thoughts, for getting new ideas and impulses. So I try to value this a lot more than before. And I've also learned that just following what everyone does and following advice about internet fame and likes is not for me, and I'm happier with the bigger amount of freedom I get to have without focusing on followers, on likes. So I sort of found out that I prefer making my own path instead of following what everybody else does, and I like to create my own ideas as good as I can. I try to devote really almost all my time to my craft, to teaching what I learned. And I know this is not for everyone, but I'm happy when I can interact with other individuals who understand these motivations. And this is as spiritual as it will get from me. I definitely have more energy now, but it just might be the summer months and all the light that's helpful. So I don't know, but yeah, at least it feels like that. I hope that answers your question. So on to the next question, and we have two similar questions here. The first one from Lynn. Did you feel as if you lost some personal connections with friends and family that only communicate by social media? Did you put your extra time to your advantage or find a new way to waste former media time? Was there anything you miss from using Facebook and Instagram? And the second one from Jen. Did you make more phone calls to people to get family news? Did you write any letters? Did you feel calmer? My family is not on social media, so there wasn't actually a big change there. We phone each other, and very occasionally we write letters or postcards, but nothing really changed in the relationship to my family. And as for friends, I more or less lost contacts with a few people that I only spoke to through social media. I'd really not call these people friends, but more like very loose connections, so acquaintances probably. So I didn't mind this much. Some sorting out will probably happen. Another thing is that I have two good friends that I also more or less lost touch with for a while. And these are people who are practically only accessible through Facebook or WhatsApp. I also left WhatsApp at the same time to never return. And still these are very old friends. So I was a little bit sad because I knew it would be even more difficult to get a hold of them without these tools. So what I do now is I try my best to keep the contact through other channels like email or phone. And it's still more important to me to be free of these platforms and the negative impacts that they have. And I figure I can somehow find a way to stay in contact with these important people. So yes, overall there's nothing that I really miss from Facebook or Instagram. There was one group on Facebook that I really liked. It was a nature journaling group. But I have so much input from all the blogs and artists that I follow and from books that it really makes up for it. So I certainly don't have too little input, and I certainly don't miss the structure or the way information is presented on Facebook. So that used to drive me insane. And yes, I definitely feel a lot calmer than before. The next question is from Les. I've deleted a lot of negativity spews, but I still waste a lot of time on social media. But it's so scary. What would I do with those hours? Yes, it's actually scary having so much time. I was a bit scared too in the beginning. I can relate to that. But even more scary for me was the fact that I still sort of reached out to my phone. I thought of my phone ready to start scrolling after I deleted the profiles. So I rarely use my phone now. I used to be glued to it. So things can definitely change. You can change how your brain works. And what scientists have found out is that this social media scrolling can actually cause a form of mild behavioral addiction. And this is definitely something that I had developed. As for alternatives, you definitely need a plan with activities to do instead if you want this to work. I didn't have a completely fail-safe plan. And as I said, I ended up scrolling through news sites for a few more months. If you delete your accounts, sit down and think before doing that and collect activities that you'd like to do or that you've enjoyed in the past or that you would like to try. And preferably offline activities, I would say. So things that force you to really get far away from your devices. You can only win because you'll be filling the time you spend scrolling with things that you enjoy. And there are really so many things to do and learn. You just have to be curious and start somewhere. And that would be my advice. We're at the end of our questions. I hope this massive Q&A was insightful for you. Thank you everyone for your feedback, for your questions, for your interest in this topic, and also for the lot of interesting conversations that we had from it. I really hope that I was able to show that it is not only possible, but a good decision to live without social media and also to run an art business without it. I wasted 5 years of my life trying to figure out how social media works, only to find out my business works better without it. So I fully stand by my decision to quit these services and instead engage with the world around me, with the ideas and wonders and thoughts that can come from it. And if anything, 1 year without social media has shown me that this was only just the beginning of a journey. So I hope you will maybe take the first step to the same journey. Report back to me what you've learned from this, what you've experienced. Let's stay in touch. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for your interest. I'll see you very soon. And until then, I hope you'll take a little bit of offline time. So, bye.